8:30.
I wouldn't mind. This is Rini, but I can do 8:30 just as easily.
Anyone else?
Sure, this is Rob.
Should we take a roll call as to what people's feelings are? 8:30 or 9?
Okay. Some of these, again, planning board members aren't in. I don't see James aren't, but Robert, you said you're okay?
Yes.
Wait. Say 8:30 or 9 when you're
okay.
calling.
All right. So no James yet, but Robert Barron, 8:30 or 9?
9.
I don't see Dwight.
I'm here.
Oh, Dwight, thank you. 8:30 or 9, Dwight, for meetings going forward.
Care. I'll go with the majority.
Okay. I'll take that as a 9 so far, but either one. So, Daniel Finger?
I would prefer 8:30, but I don't feel that strongly about it.
Okay. Jimena? I didn't see her. I didn't see Hugh on the call yet. Holly?
Definitely. Yes. No. 8:30 definitely for me. Sorry.
You got it. And Richard was 9. Nat, you're there for Vinny?
I am. 8:30.
8:30. Kathy, Connor? 8:30 or 9?
Sorry, I don't know. 8:30.
You got it. I didn't see Bernie. And Rini, your vote was 8:30 or 9? And Rini, you still there?
Okay, sorry, I was muted and didn't realize it. I can do 8:30 if people want, but I have a preference for 9.
Okay. So 1, 2, 3, 4 9s, and 1, 2, 3, 4 8:30s.
Okay, we're evenly split, so let's keep it at 8:30 the way the original schedule was.
Sounds good.
Okay.
Okay, adoption of, so the next meeting is October 6th at 8:30. Adoption of minutes, yesterday revised minutes were sent with a few corrections. Does anyone have any additional corrections or edits to the minutes?
It's Holly. I do. My comments from my conversation with Adam Kaufman, I don't think I was clear. This is regarding the North Castle 100 Business Park project. When I said that I didn't mean to say the scope of the project had changed. It has not. It's still a warehouse. So I just wanted to mention that and make that clear.
Okay, thank you, Holly. Any other corrections or edits?
Yes, Richard. This is Rob Barron. On page 4, the second paragraph, that should read that Mr. Barron stated that traffic calming devices in Dobbsbury have been removed and not replaced, period. So not based on, it just stated that traffic calming devices in Dobbsbury have been removed and not replaced, period. So that's the way that first sentence should read. But I would like to make a sort of a follow-up comment to that. If this is the context, or should I wait till after the minutes are approved?
If it's quick, you can do it now.
Sure. Upon further investigation, what I found out was that it was not Con Ed's decision to not replace those traffic calming devices, but it was the Village of Dobbs Ferry. So my earlier criticism of Con Ed was unwarranted.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other corrections or edits? If not, can I have a motion to approve the minutes as revised?
This is Rob, so moved.
Thank you, Rob. Can I have a second?
This is Dwight. I'll second.
Right. Bill, call the roll.
I Don't see James here yet, but Robert Barron,
Yes.
Dwight Douglas,
Yes.
Daniel Finger,
Yes.
Daniel.
Yes.
Thank you. I don't see Jimena yet. I don't see Hugh Greachin. Holly Hasbrook,
Approved.
Richard Hyman,
Yes.
Nat for Vincent Kopicki,
Yes.
Kathy O'Connor.
Yes.
I don't see, Bernie Tomes, I see you, Bernie. Bernie, okay on the minutes?
He doesn't have any icon indicating he's in.
Okay, so maybe he's not quite in. Rini, on the minutes?
Yes.
Great, thank you.
Okay, so the minutes are adopted as revised. Next, chairman's remarks. I just want to advise the board that a letter did go out to Con Edison based upon our meeting last month with several suggestions as to, one, trimming of the trees under the wires, that they not cut down the trees adjacent to the spraying brook, but trim them as opposed to cutting them down so there wouldn't be a gap. And the other comments we made about trimming trees along streets in the various municipalities. So hopefully they will see our comments, and perhaps at a future meeting we can have a representative of Con Ed come and respond to our comments. Of course, our comments went out at a particularly inappropriate time, considering the storm created a lot of damage, and Con Ed took a lot of heat, but hopefully things are roughly back to normal and we can discuss the trimming of trees in the future. That's it for me. Norma, Commissioner's remarks.
So good morning, everyone. Happy end of summer. Today obviously is September 1st. So it is now 5 months since Census Day, April 1st. The county actually for the last couple of weeks has been doing really, really well with responses. We think it is something to do with the fact that the census workers themselves are now out and knocking on doors. And so we think, there's been a lot of attention to the fact that the Census Bureau brought or moved back in the date that they're going to close the portal, which is now going to be September 30th instead of October 31st. They would have actually needed congressional approval to use that October 31st date. And so right now, Westchester County is at 66.1% with a response. Nationwide, they are, for a self-response, they're at 64.9%. But the Census Bureau is saying that they've got another 17.5% of the households counted based on the enumerators actually going out and knocking door to door. So they're actually saying they're over 82%. So then they are on target, they say, to finish by September 30th. We will see. But so we have 30 days left here in the county. We're going to use every one of those 30 days. We've got billboards back up. We've got commercials running, PSAs running up back on News 12 and other stations. We've now, we ordered 52 banners for different municipalities that it just arrived yesterday. So we're going to get them out to all the different municipalities and to our county parks to get them up as well. So, again, it's going to be another busy 30 days, but this is it. So we're going to live with whatever happens after this. And then just my last little note is today is September 1st, our departmental budget is due. So obviously we've been, a little crazy just trying to pull all those numbers together, just trying to figure out, what next year is going to look like. So, but all is well otherwise.
Thank you, Norma. What was the census percentage last census?
What did we end up with last time around? Hold on. Yeah. Westchester County ended at 67.9%. So we are 1.8% away from reaching our 2010 response rate.
Okay, thank you, Norma.
Yep.
Next, referrals. Ratification of actions taken by staff, period July 16th through August 15th. Anyone have any comments? Yeah, I have a couple. First of all, on the Sleepy Hollow, the development of the old GM site, I am recusing myself. I did work as a consultant on that project many years ago. I have had no connection with it in the interim, but I think I will continue to recuse myself on that. And on 106 North Division in Peekskill, that building definitely looks historic to me. And so I know that the letter said the upper stories are going to stay roughly the same and the lower stories are being changed. Hopefully that will be maintaining the historic character, although the current first floor has been changed many times. And also it doesn't indicate, since they're doubling the number of units, if there's any displacement of the current tenants in the upper floors. Do we have any information on either of those issues?
This is Dwight. Regarding the historic aspect, this is in a district that's a historic district. It's been established with the state. And there's a whole board that will review all the plans for the renovation of the building in light of the historic nature of it.
Good.
The other, I don't know anything about whether there's displacement.
Richard, this is Lucas. I have made it a practice now to ask, every time about displacements. And I called the city planner about this, and he said that the apartments are currently vacant. There would be no displacements for this.
Well, do we know how they became vacant?
No, I didn't ask that level of detail.
Was it a natural, people naturally moving out, or in preparation of this development were people asked to leave?
I can't say.
You can find that out. Okay, anyone else have any comments on any of the other referrals? Okay, if not, can we have a motion to ratify the actions taken?
This is Dwight, so moved.
Thank you, Dwight. Can we have a second?
Daniel Finger, second.
Thank you, Daniel. Please call the roll, Bill.
James Arndt? I think I saw you on there, James.
Yeah, I'm here. Wait.
Great, thanks. Your vote
Yes,
on the...
please. Yes.
Yeah, thank you. Robert Barron?
Yes.
Dwight Douglas?
Yes.
Daniel Finger?
Yes.
I don't see Jimena. I don't see Hugh or a DPW representative, unless I'm missing.
Bill? Yeah, it's Gail. I'm here.
Oh, Gail, thank you very much. Your vote on that? Thank you.
Yes.
Holly Hasbrook?
Yes.
Richard Hyman?
Yes.
Vincent Kopicki? Nat for Vincent Kopicki?
Yes.
Kathy O'Connor?
Yes.
Bernie Tomes?
Yes.
And Rini Toback?
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Now we have a referral of interest. This is the North 60 in the town of Mount Pleasant. They just declared the draft environmental impact statement complete. We will have a presentation by the staff. I think Michael Vernon is doing this. Michael?
Yes, everyone can hear me, correct?
Yes.
Okay, I'm trying to get my pointer set up here. Okay, yes, this is a referral we received for the North 60, which is part of the Grasslands campus in Mount Pleasant. It is a DEIS for a zoning amendment and site plan approval. And we're going to draft the response letter and then circulate it for your review next week. A site plan approval is in two parts. There's a master development plan that will discuss the full site, and then a traditional site plan approval. It's going on right now for the phase 1 part. The developer is Ferrari Associates, and they're proposing a 3 million square foot biotech mixed use development. We have previously reviewed a draft scope for this and sent a comment letter on June 6, 2019. Most of those comments were addressed in the DEIS. There's a few that weren't, and I'm going to go over some of those later on. And actually, our planning department is in the middle of creating a master plan for the Grasslands campus, and we'll be working to coordinate with the developers to make sure that both of our programs will be compatible. Okay, so the site is called the North 60 due to the area of land owned by the county, but the full project site is just under 80 acres. The site is surrounded to the south by the Grasslands campus across Hospital Road, and the nearest part of the Grasslands is the Westchester Medical Center. Eastview Office Park is to the west. The gate of Hemmons Cemetery is across the Sprainbrook Parkway, which is this road right here. To the east, and there's a single-family residential neighborhood across Stevens Avenue to the north. Stevens is right there, and then also on this side is Route 9A and the old Sawmill River Road, which touch the northern border of the site. The county owns the largest parcel. This is the 60-acre parcel. Most of it is woodland, except for one single-family residence on Old Sawmill River Road. Parts of the property have been cleared and are currently used as storage and staging by County DPW. This parcel was recently leased for 99 years by Ferrari Associates, the project developer. The other 7 parcels to the west here are currently owned by the developer and constitute the rest of the 20 acres. These properties are mainly developed with single-family residences, with one containing a set of greenhouses, but all of the structures over there are to be demolished. There are 2 watercourses that run through the site to the north, right here, and one over right here. And they connect the Sawmill River, which actually runs right here. There are some zoning amendments as part of the DEIS. The site is currently split between the R20, which is a one-family residential district, and that's for the 60 acres owned by the county, and the other 20 acres owned by the developer are under the OB6 office building district. The applicant proposes to rezone the whole site to a newly formed district, which will be OB5MP, which would be Office Business Master Plan. The OB5 zone currently exists, and this new zone would mostly be following those regulations, but essentially allowing all the uses that the applicant's plan requests. I'm going to go over some of those soon. The main requirement in the new zone is that any development would have to include a master development plan and would only be available for 60 acres or greater and bordered by a state or county highway to limit the applicability of this zone to be established in other areas of the town. The developer's goal is to create a model for biotech and research centers focusing on smart growth concepts and multi-use patterns. They don't want to follow past office park practices like the Platinum Mile. They're trying to be a little more green with this. They want to include amenities. And features to create a sense of place on the site, incorporating offices, lab space, retail, services, a hotel, and a children's science center. They want these uses to benefit both the site and the surrounding medical center, medical college, the Westchester Grasslands campus, and other uses that are nearby. So this is the goal is to arrange the parking within garages underneath the buildings to allow for large portions of the site to remain green space and to provide pedestrian character with parks and plazas and pathways. They want to promote interconnectivity between both the site and the various uses within Grasslands, and the phased development is meant to allow for flexible opportunities and allow for tenants to reconcile their needs while fitting within the master plan parameters. Residential uses are not currently proposed within this master plan, but there is an alternative plan under the DEIS that I'll be discussing in a little bit.
Can you mute James, please?
I think Michael Lipkin will have to do that. So there you go. Okay, so the master development plan calls for 3 million square feet of building space. Most of this is going to be biotech and research buildings, which are these purple ones to the north and the west. And they're going to be about between 4 and 7 stories tall, depending on where the locations are. This central area here is focused on Main Street with wide sidewalks, plazas, street parking, and ground floor retail. Upper stories in this area are to contain medical offices, and this large pink building here is actually going to contain a grocery store and a fitness center they're proposing. Most of these buildings are going to be 5 stories. This orange building in the corner along the Sprain and Hospital Road here is to be a 6-story, 120-room hotel. These yellow buildings over here are to be a multi-story children's science center. Now, most of the buildings will have underground parking that's going to be located within garages underneath, but there are proposed 2 7-story garages behind the Main Street area, one over here and the other one over here. And actually, the only large lot parking area that they're proposing is back here in the corner along the sprain, kind of the back corner of the property. They're proposing 8,592 total parking spaces, and 434 of those are to be on grade, mostly in here, but also, again, with some of the street parking along the main street.
I'm sorry, can you say how many parking spaces again?
8,592. They're proposing a new street to connect Hospital Road down here with 9A and the Sawmill River Road up here. This is winding street that curves along here. They are also proposing a new street layout, but those are going to remain over there. A woodland buffer area to the north will separate the site from the residential areas to the north, and other woodland areas are going to protect the existing wetlands that follow along those 2 river courses. Throughout the area, they're going to have new water retention basins, and a new landscape pond that's down here is going to be part of the existing stream on the east side of the property. And they actually gave us a rendering of what that's supposed to look like right here. So this will be facing south. This is the Children's Hospital and the Westchester Medical Center. So they're proposing kind of promenades and nice walkways and kind of an example in front of the Children's Science Center of wetland uses. And they also gave us another rendering of the proposed Main Street area. This is kind of an example of what they want the plazas to look like. Okay, continuing on. They are proposing a new transportation network in the site. I'm going to show a map here to better illustrate that. They are adding 4 new entrances to the site. 3 of them are going to be on Hospital Road. This is the Main Street entrance right here. This is a side entrance by the hotel, and then this is the entrance on Hospital Road to that cut-through street. And then the 4th entrance is going to be on Sawmill River Road slash 9A. They're going to be revamping that intersection there. This roadway here, they're proposing to dedicate to Mount Pleasant. The rest of them will kind of stay interior streets to the site. They did talk about a bicycle network throughout the site, though most of it's going to be marked by sharrows as of right now. All these blue lines you see here are going to be marked by sharrows. They are proposing what they call a cycle track, which is essentially a dedicated bike lane along, for some reason, half of the new cut-through street. And then actually this orange dotted line here is the route of the proposed Terrytown-Kensico Trailway, which I'll get into a little bit later. They didn't really talk much about that trailway, but they did at least show it on this map. These green lines are going to be walking paths that are going to be installed within the wooded areas to connect for both transportation and recreation. They are proposing a shuttle service to connect the site to the Hawthorne and Valhalla train stations. There is a closer station actually at Mount Pleasant, but that stop only allows 1 train car to offload and services very light, mainly to accommodate people visiting the cemetery. So the shuttles are going to focus on stations with full service. The initial plan is to only run shuttles during rush hours, but it is to be studied to determine if an increase in service is needed once the project gets bigger. And the site is to have separated bicycle paths to the North County Trailway over here, and actually to the Bronx River Pathway, which follows the train lines south from Valhalla once the Terrytown-Kensico Trail is complete. They are proposing some changes to Hospital Road.
Excuse me?
Yes.
Could you just flip back a minute so we can see the bus stops in connection with the transportation? The first slide, I think, had the bus stops. I'd kind of like to just take a glance at that.
Okay.
Okay, so there's a bus stop at the south and at the west side. Okay.
Yes, this one isn't really going to be accessible much because there's actually a very large hill here. And I'm going to talk about buses in a little bit because they didn't really actually mention them very much. So that's a comment that we have that we're going to add to the letter once we get those comment letters in. Now for Hospital Road, again, they are going to be adding lanes to accommodate turning lanes into the site. Kind of the biggest change that they're going to that they're proposing is actually to add a roundabout over here, which is the corner of Hospital Road and Bradhurst Avenue, and that's actually going to change the way that traffic off of the northbound from the Sprain works. They're proposing essentially for people to turn right only and then have to go around the traffic circle to head back to Grasslands. And they're doing this, they say, to really to keep traffic from stopping along the highway or the parkway. And they want to keep vehicles moving along this site. We will be discussing with Public Works the applicability of this in the comment letter. Now, again, for beeline integration, they did not really mention beeline much in the DEIS, other than to say that it exists within Grasslands and could potentially be located on the site. The transportation staff has noted that the site could be used as a terminus for multiple routes that end in Grasslands, because this is kind of the last stop for a lot of the routes. And right now they're having to find ways to turn around through the site. So in the master plan that we're working on, we're actually considering putting a stop at the major intersection within the North 60 and figuring out a way for them to turn around. Transportation staff did note that the site should follow county design guidelines, providing enough space for multiple buses to stop on the side of the road, providing turning radii wide enough for buses, and to construct shelters. Now the open space I had talked about before is kind of a major component of the site. It's been designed to protect wetlands and water courses and to buffer the site from the residential neighborhood to the north. The applicant has aimed to provide aesthetic outdoor spaces to allow recreation and passive enjoyment of the site. Some of the courtyard areas, namely this one here and here between those buildings, are actually going to be covering underground parking garages that exist between the buildings. And the plan also tries to take advantage of the existing topography to create vistas and screen various uses from surrounding uses. Relating to stormwater management, it's to be handled by a combination of above ground basins and subsurface tanks. The proposed pond will act as a major collection point, treating water from both the site and upstream sources. Wetland disturbance from construction is to be offset by the creation of new wetlands within proposed woodland areas, and green roofs and pervious paving is supposed to be considered in the design for buildings and paved areas. There were some other considerations mentioned in the DEIS. The first one that I noticed, two areas on the site were actually noted in a phase 1 archaeological study as potentially sensitive, and they recommended that those two sites undergo a phase 2 study. Police service is going to fall under the Mount Pleasant Police Department. Fire service is in discussion to be provided by the Hawthorne Fire and EMS Department. The applicant said that they're in discussions with Hawthorne to determine any issues. Medical waste generation is of course expected, as this is a biotech area, but the quantity will not be known until tenants are found, but regulated medical waste is to be overseen by the New York State Department of Health. DEIS does mention that existing sewer system will undergo infill and infiltration measures, those are the I&I, to mitigate the projected flows from the site as per county guidelines. The developer did state in the DEIS desire for all buildings to be rated at least LEED Silver with various energy saving technologies and the building design. And again, green roofs and solar arrays are to be investigated for applicability within the site. Now, as I stated before, this project is visioned as 2 phases. The first phase is up for site plan review right now. And this phase is going to focus on the southern portion of the site along Hospital Road. This will be, the first phase is 500,000 square feet of development, including the hotel, some of the medical offices along the main street, some of the retail areas, and one biotech building constructed down here in the corner. The new connector street is also proposed for this site. Again, this curved road over here. And the pond area is to be laid out with initial surface and subsurface basins to be installed throughout the woodlands in the back. Wetland remediation is also begin in this phase. And as you'll notice, probably the biggest difference between the phase 1 and the later phases is that many of the parking areas are to consist of surface lots, But these lots are to be constructed on the footprints of future building sites. So they're essentially going to clear the land now, put parking on it as a holding place, and then build the buildings as they come later. Some garage parking is to be constructed below some of the buildings, mainly this one and this one. But of the 1,791 total spaces they're proposing for phase one, 905 of them are to be at grade. They are expecting phase one to be completed by 2024, and then phase two, the full master plan, they're looking at 2039. Now, I have mentioned residential is not currently part of the master plan, but the applicant included various alternative plans in the DEIS. One of them, alternative C, called for the addition of housing to the site plan due to what is known as the Weitzman study that was recently conducted that established a need for housing on the site. Housing units would replace many of the medical office areas along the main street. Let me change to that slide. So the housing would be the upper stories of the Main Street area with the retail below them. And then some of the plans mentioned an assisted living facility in this larger building back here. Now the site layout under this alternative will largely be similar to the proposed master plan, but with the residential changes. This alternative, they were looking at 660 units consisting of 1 bedroom, studios, micro units, and 2 to 4 person co-living units, which they call lily pads, which kind of works like a student dormitory almost, with multiple people sharing a kitchen area and common areas. This plan, they said, is consistent with the Weitzman study. The Weitzman study argues that residential uses are essential for serving and attracting the proposed biotech uses on the site. There are some minor discrepancies between the board's comments on the draft scope from 2019 and the current DEIS. An in-depth analysis was presented in the DEIS regarding impacts to traffic around the site, but the plan needs to stress that approval for work done in relation to county roads will be required by county DPW, especially for those hospital roads changes and the proposed roundabout. As I stated before, the DEIS does not actually mention the proposed Tarrytown-Kensico Trailway. It is marked in some places, but the full extent of the trailway's impacts were not really discussed in the DEIS, especially, again, that hospital road area. I talked with some of the design staff, and they believe that the developer should include this section of the trailway within their plans, or at the least ensure that the right-of-way is maintained by the county for future construction, so that essentially so that we don't have to ask them later on if we can build the Tarrytown-Kensico Trailway. The applicant does mention that bike sharing would be considered for their site as well as the rest of the grassland sites. They're considering a bike sharing system for the whole grasslands. Now, while the DEIS notes that recycling will follow county protocol, no mention is actually made regarding food composting, which was mentioned in the draft scoping letter. It requested that composting be considered on site, and it should be noted actually that the county is considering the construction of a composting center on the Grasslands campus by the household material waste facility. So with that, I leave it open to questions and comments. I know it's a lot, so.
Okay. Any questions or comments?
Yes. Can you tell me which sewer system serves, which sewer plant serves this location?
Oh, I can look that up. I did not write that down. I believe
it goes down. My understanding, it goes to the Sawmill Trunk, which goes down to Yonkers. This is Bill.
Okay.
That's correct. It's Yonkers.
It's Yonkers. And is there a separate waste and stormwater system up there?
It's all handled on site.
The sanitary sewer is separate from the stormwater on the campus.
On the campus. Thank you. Oh, can I just ask one other thing? What area is the facility expected to serve? Where are the people supposed to be coming from?
the people for the North 60?
that are going to be using, you know, the Children's Science Center, the hospital system, and so forth?
Well, the Children's Science Center they're saying is to be a draw kind of for the county, kind of a regional institution. A lot of the services, like the shopping areas, that's actually, as we are doing our ongoing master plan study, it's kind of a stated need that there really isn't any restaurants or grocery store or anything like that around that's easily accessible to people on grasslands. So that's kind of why they're focusing on creating this downtown area, both for people that will work in the North 60 and also the hospital and the medical college, and even south to the county uses like labs and the fire.
So the commercial use should be fairly local, and the other ones are drawing from the county as a whole.
Yes.
Thanks.
And how many jobs in total is this creating? This is Holly.
That's I'll have to look up. They did do a
I believe it was 8,000, Michael.
Yeah, that sounds right.
This is Bernie. Is there any study on the impact of traffic on the spraying due to this 8,000 new parking spots?
They did do a full a traffic impact study, and that was one of the reasons why they were talking about the roundabout, because they were assuming that if they kept things the way they are, that traffic would be blocked on the Sprain for people trying to exit. And the idea behind the roundabout is that it keeps people moving so that people won't be stopped on the actual parkway.
This is Richard. That roundabout is crazy. I mean, it's first of all, it's going to its connection to Bradhurst is going to be a problem, much less its connection to the Sprain and thousands of employees. I mean, you know, they're going to be rush hour. That's going to be crazy. That roundabout to me is. I've never seen anything quite like it. That you have to get off a highway and then turn. You want to go left, but you turn right, and you turn around and circle, and then you hit Bradhurst.
Yeah.
Someone's.
And the other issue is 9A. Now, 2 months ago, we discussed the distribution center further up 9A in Mount Pleasant, and we indicated that that was going to have an impact on 9A, which the Mount Pleasant Planning Board, and then that this project was coming, and the two were going to have an impact on 9A. And the Mount Pleasant Planning Board at that point said, well, you know, they were the first horse to the gate at the distribution center, so they didn't have to worry about cumulative impact. Well, now we have cumulative impact, and they have a breakdown of where they think how many people entering the site are coming from 9A versus the Sprain.
That was mentioned in the traffic impact study. Let me see if I can find that exactly. I have that traffic impact study.
Okay, if you can get back to us on that. I mean,
yeah, I will write that down so that I can. In fact, even if you wanted to see that itself, I could send that to you. But let me.
Okay, I think both entrances are going to be serious issues. I mean, I'm talking about for 3 million square feet.
Mm-hmm.
You know, for phase one, you know, it may not. Was phase one is like 500,000. I mean, it's not going to be that big a deal. But for 3 million square feet, of course, by 2039, we all may be jet flying into our sites, so don't have to worry about traffic.
Yes, they're actually saying in their impact study that the opening of the connection from Hospital Road to 9A will, since it will allow the cut through, it'll actually reduce traffic on the Bradhurst Avenue side because people then don't have to circle around the entire site to get to 9A. So that's kind of their arguments.
Yeah, so put the traffic on 9A is what.
Yeah, I'd also like to comment on the roundabout, and spending a lot of time in Western Mass, I'm very familiar with driving on these roundabouts. And I think you're going to have to, they would need to expand it a little bit because it looks way too small. And I'd also say that roundabouts are a very good area for bus turnarounds, but not the little bitty one that they have planned here, they're going to need a far more well-designed and roundabout that's going to be capable of handling a lot more traffic than this, because a roundabout is not a solution to back up on the highway. It just backs up all around the roundabout, although it does make a lot of sense to keep the traffic moving as opposed to stopping.
Also, if you look, the angle getting off of the Sprain onto Hospital Road to the roundabout is a very tight turn. So people are going to practically have to come to a full stop in order to negotiate that turn.
Yeah, I think it's a good idea, but it's definitely going to have to be reworked in the details.
Any other comments? Anyone else?
One other question.
Go on, Bernie.
The Children's Center, how square footage? How many square footage is that?
Let me go back to that slide. It's on there. Okay, the Living Science Center, it's 142,000 square feet combined between those both buildings there.
And how many stories?
It was between 2 and 3, depending on where it was.
Anyone else?
Yeah, I have a couple of questions, comments. One is you kind of touched on the wetlands issue and the rivers. I was hoping for a little more clarity on that. You know, the initial overlay that you showed had the 2 rivers, and then now it looks like there's some roads going over. So I was hoping for a little more clarity on that. And then on the solar, I'm hoping that there can be not just an investigation about it, but some kind of requirement about solar energy and green building technology. And then also I was wondering if there was going to be included in the site plan setbacks from the residential so that they can expand the site to go beyond what they're currently envisioning.
As for the rivers, they're not really they're not very big rivers. They're more streams that lead to the Sawmill River, but these streams themselves are not very big. The reason why they're putting that pond there is to collect water from the sites that they're putting all this new impervious surface on, and they described it as kind of like a not only for aesthetic reasons to make it look nice for a promenade, but also to put installations on there to teach people about wetland remediation, especially next to the Children's Science Center. What they were mentioning though is they do have a lot of remediation areas for any wetlands that were disturbed, but then also most of the site they're building on not in wetlands, but they did want to put stormwater management in places that made sense.
Yeah, and I would just like to add, in addition to seconding the issue about the wetlands issue, I'm wondering if, since it's going to be, starting pretty much from scratch, if they've considered putting in some of those underground heating and cooling systems, which I can't remember the name of right now, sorry.
The geothermal?
Geothermal, right. And I would really like to see this in context of the surrounding area, because I'm having trouble looking at the multiplying effects. It looks nice as a single development, but I'm very concerned about this in the surrounding area and the use of buses, particularly for the more localized trade on the restaurants and so forth.
Yeah, we were definitely concerned about. Oh, I'm echoing somehow. We were definitely concerned about the buses. That was something that Transportation Naomi I talked to actually, and she definitely concerned about that.
Yeah, I'm on the line, and I agree with everything everybody is saying. Certainly that issue of the roundabout and making sure a 40-foot or 60-foot bus could access that would be critical, and that's something I think we talked about, we'd put in the letter.
Yeah, so I'm going to be collecting, we have our own staff comments, and then I'll be adding things you mentioned, and then I will circulate the letter to you all to make sure that my comments were presented correctly, and then we'll send it off. We're trying to do this within the next couple of weeks.
I still have questions, Richard. I've been waiting to
Pardon?
in the queue.
Go ahead.
Okay. I have another question. So, like reading the traffic impact statement, I mean, there's a lot of emphasis on you know on level of service, and I think that's the wrong sort of, or not the wrong, but we need to be looking through it through the lens of vehicle miles traveled or VMT reductions. Our patterns document, which, because we're doing the master plan, I went back and looked. It talks about reducing solo driving. And, you know, the fact that they're talking about 8,600 parking spaces means that everybody, they're assuming everybody's going to drive here. And so what we need to do is demand or request, I guess, some kind of robust transportation demand management plan for this project that includes requirements to price parking, because driving competes with other transportation modes. And we know from just our board that, you can have the best bus service going to a site as possible, like which we have in the McKillian building, yet almost everybody drives. And that's natural, because we need to create some kind of mechanism where there are incentive and disincentive structures to reduce solo driving. So that's the first point. The second thing is that when it comes to bicycling, I think it's really poor judgment for us when we're building something from scratch, which is what's happening here, to say that we are going to use a dangerous bicycle facility, which is Sharrows. We know now, over many years of experience, that Sharrows are not appropriate anymore, and that they're, putting bikes in the way of cars without separation is not a good idea. This development should have, throughout the driving network should have curb raised bike paths. Nothing else will do, if we're going to start from scratch. I do have larger questions about the sort of the financial viability of this, and what the impact is going to be on the county, in terms of like who maintains this infrastructure. Like once these roads are built, do we own them? Does the developer own them? Who's responsible in 30 years for replacing all this infrastructure? And whether the tax revenue is going to, suffice. But I do think that the 660 housing units is not enough, that we should be pushing for even more housing units that are in proportion to the number of offices and retail that's going in there. Because that's the only way, if we mix the uses, that we're going to make sure that this is going to be a stable, financially stable development, in 2040, when when we're looking at this again. I have other comments that I gave to Lucas already, but I guess getting back to the transportation demand management question, is there any way that we could request that the county and the IDA link any aid to a robust TDM plan that reduces solo driving and doesn't require so many parking spaces? Thank you.
Yeah, that's definitely something I can put in the letter. I can check and see with others here how that works. But
okay, this is Richard. I have a couple of comments. First of all, the housing, the breakdown you gave, they all seem to be small and smaller units.
Yes.
Micro units and dorm type units, and maybe a couple of one-bedroom units, but we have not seen the Weitzman study, which apparently discusses housing. Can you forward a copy of that study to us? And it seems to me, in addition to what Rob said about more housing, I'm assuming there'll be at least 10% affordable, although I think the county, as an example, should probably require 20% affordable to set a good example for the rest of the municipalities in the county. And I'm not saying there should be 4-bedroom units here, but I think there should at least be some 2-bedroom units. You know, you have a couple working at the lab, and they have a kid, and they're not going to want to live in a micro unit. So if you can send a copy of that report to us, I think that would be helpful. Secondly, Naomi, how many people take the bus currently to the medical center?
I don't have the exact figure right now, but it is pretty high. That is like one of the busiest stops, certainly above I-287 in the county. You know, it's pretty high. I know we had looked at it prior when we were looking at the bus stop there. So there's, you know, there's several stops in that area, and there are a lot of people that access the campus currently by bus.
Right, and there's good services. A lot of people accessing already, so there's already a pattern of people going to this specific area by bus, and I think that needs to be taken into consideration and provided for on this site. You know, there should be bus stops on the site, and there should be you know, access. You know, what are they going to do? They're going to go tramping you know, a mile from the last bus stop to get to one of these office buildings. You know, not every one of these office buildings are going to be, you know, super scientists developing vaccines. There are going to be a lot of regular people who work there as secretary and maintenance and support staff and everything else, and you know, they may be coming by bus, and provision should be made for them.
Right. I should say also to support the Grasslands Master Plan development, the transportation planners were embarking on a transportation demand management plan for the Grasslands campus. So that's something we're using our federal planning dollars for to complement the master plan. So we actually have an RFP out now. We're getting a consultant to do that work, and we're hoping that the master plan would be applicable to other campus-like developments throughout the county.
Yeah, and not to get too much into the details, but I think the buses need to have bicycle racks to transport bicycles into this area, which, you know, is large enough that once you arrive, you can use your bicycle and eliminate a lot of the car use.
Any other comments?
I have a quick comment, just piggybacking on some of the concerns and questions I heard earlier. Is there any thought of recommending a requirement for electric vehicles and charging stations to be part, like a good percentage of those parking spots, like 20%, 30%?
I don't believe they specifically mentioned that. We do kind of put that in our comment letters now as a standard if they aren't mentioned. I don't remember offhand if they mentioned that particularly.
It won't alleviate the traffic, but it will alleviate the pollution. So.
Mm-hmm.
Hey, this
Any
is
other
Ken.
comment?
Good morning. Right. Good morning, Richard. Hey, there were two things. One is that there is a law that the Board of Legislators and a couple are on this call right now that requires electric vehicle charging stations as part of a development that's supported by the IDA. So I believe that this would fall into that category. And for bike racks, all the buses we buy have bike racks on them. Period. The end. So, thank you.
Thank you. Any other comments? Okay, Michael, can you give us an estimate of the timing on this? This is a gigantic project that has all kinds of studies that continue to need to be done. What is the timing of the Mount Pleasant Planning Board on this?
The next step, the Mount Pleasant Planning Board is meeting at the end of September. So we are trying to get the letter out within the next, I'll probably finish writing the letter this week and then send it out for your review. If not at the end of this week, then the beginning of next week. But yeah, they need their Mount Pleasant is beginning its process. Well, its official process at the end of September.
I think officially they're actually opening the public hearing Thursday evening.
This Thursday, okay.
This Thursday, September 3rd. That's what
they
already told me, so.
They had recommended us to give our comments back by the 24th, I believe.
Yeah, there's no question. I'm not going to close the public hearing when they open it. They're just going to open it and start the discussion.
Okay.
Richard, this is Daniel Finger. To your point from earlier, I think this also needs to be looked at, I think it was your point, in conjunction with the distribution center that we talked about, I think it was at the last meeting, because they're both in that same area. It's really not that far north. They both touch 9A, and the traffic is going to be an issue there, regardless of what we do for public transportation. So I really think these two items and zonings need to be looked at in conjunction with each other.
Do we know anything about the sense of the local community, town of Mount Pleasant? What do they feel about this? Have they made any comments to date?
I haven't received anything. Not from Mount Pleasant itself, not from residences.
Okay, well, so there are a lot of comments that we've made. Hopefully you will include them in your letter. You'll send the letter around. All of us take a look at it and respond. And you're saying not until, it doesn't have to be until September 20 something. So,
well, I mean, we're trying to get it, yes. Mm-hmm.
But also coordinating this with the Grasslands Master Plan is obviously essential. And I don't know how far along we are with the Grasslands Master Plan, but how is that, those two things going on at the same time? What's the impact?
Well, I'm doing a lot of the mapping work for Grasslands, so I've been kind of incorporating these plans into some sketches and ideas, like for instance the bus transportation map that I showed before. So how far it is, Michael Lipkin's kind of the project manager on that. So.
Okay, because I did see that the County Local Development Corporation approved $300 million for the Grassland, for the medical center, for both refinancing and new capital projects. So obviously there's expansion proposed for the medical center part of the campus. So, there's a lot going on in that area at the same time.
Yes, yeah.
Okay, thank you, Michael. Again, we'll await your draft letter.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, matters for board action. Housing Implementation Fund for 48 Manhattan Avenue. Who's going to be doing the presentation?
Leonard Grunfeld will be presenting.
Okay, thank you, Leonard. Go ahead.
48 Manhattan Avenue in the town of Greenburgh, which is it's a fair and affordable housing development. The next slide shows the location map within the Fairview neighborhood in the town of Greenburgh. It's right off of Route 119, Tarrytown Road, just south of 287. The site is about equidistant from downtown White Plains and the village of Elmsford. It's within walking distance of Crosslands Shopping Center and a whole host of other retail and also government offices and the Greenburgh Public Library. Go to the next slide. The two pictures show the existing conditions on the site, which are 6 single-story buildings, public housing, 30 units for seniors aged 62 and over. If you go to the next slide, so what's going to happen here is they're going to basically redevelop the existing public housing, which they have gone to HUD and got permission and deemed it obsolete and got permission for demolition. And they will demolish the existing buildings, perform any environmental remediation that's necessary, and the relocation of the existing public housing tenants will follow the applicable HUD relocation guidelines. The existing tenants at the completion of the new development will be given the opportunity to return. The development consists of the new construction of 70, the next slide, Mike, 70 rental units for seniors 62 and over. That's 40 new affordable units on top of the 30 that exist today. And there will be 44 outdoor parking spaces, outdoor seating areas, and the development consists of various affordability ranging from 30% to 60% of AMI. And the next slide shows the income levels at 30, 50, and 60 for various size households in the county. And then the proposed financing. The development is seeking HFA bond financing as well as subsidy through HFA HCR from the Senior Housing Program and the Federal Housing Trust Fund. And the federal low-income housing tax credits come as of right with the HFA tax and bonds. The county is looking to put in housing implementation fund to the tune of up to $2.5 million, or roughly $35,700 per unit. There will also be a developer loan and a deferred developer fee as well. The total cost of the development is expected to be just north of $34 million, or about $487,000 per unit. The use of the county HIF funds, the next slide, includes pavement, concrete curbing, stormwater, a new stormwater system, sanitary sewer systems, sidewalks, fencing, water lines and hydrants, and site lighting and landscaping. It should also be noted that the town of Greenberg has requested some additional funding through HIF for improvements in the area to sidewalks, ADA compliance, and also sidewalks connecting to the park and Theodore Young Community Center, which is right adjacent to the site. Also some fencing there's a brook that runs along the edge of the site, so some fencing along there and the sidewalk along Manhattan Avenue. The next slide shows the site plan, which the building is a proposed 3-story building. It shows the parking and other improvements on site. And then the next slide is the rendering of the 3-story building, essentially what this will look like when it's completed. And I'm happy to answer any questions that may come up.
Okay, anyone have any questions? Well, it's clear that low-income housing...
Richard?
Yeah, go on.
This is Rob. I mean, I'm in support of this, but I just want to make an observation. 2 things. One is that, this is not in a pedestrian-friendly area. I mean, all the retail uses, destinations are very auto-centric. Getting to the the cross county, whatever it's called, shopping center is incredibly hazardous. Navigating that parking lot and every other use along 119 is auto-centric. So I just want to point that out. The other issue is that we have to recognize that even though this building is farther than the existing buildings from 287, it's still within about 300 feet, which is always a concern when it comes to issues like asthma and things like that. So I'm going to support this, but I just want to make that observation. We have to think about this going forward in the future. Thanks.
Yeah, and I just want to comment that I really support the rather substantial number of units available to 30% of income. But I am noting that this is an elderly project. This is a senior housing project. So I'm wondering if they're going to be providing any shuttle or bus or something like that for the seniors there.
At this point, I haven't been informed of anything. At the current time, the 30 units of public housing do not have any support like that. They do have the Theodore Young Community Centers right behind the site. And there will be connection from the site to the Theodore, directly to the Theodore Young Community Center via a new sidewalk that will connect through there. There will also be new sidewalks connecting.
Leonard, can you show us where that is on the plan?
It's right. So Manhattan Avenue is on your left. Theodore Young will be on your right. It's directly behind I guess that's to the west.
Can you pull up the broader picture that shows it?
That would be slide 2, Michael. So Theodore Young, you could see it right, basically adjacent to the site. You could see the right to the left. also to the west. And then Yosemite Park is right behind there as well.
The Theater Young faces on Manhattan.
Correct, but it also adjacent those buildings. You can see the 6 buildings, the single-story buildings right adjacent to it. So it's basically to the south. I should correct. South, okay. Yes, to the south, and then Yosemite Park is more to the east. So sorry about that.
Yosemite Park.
This is Anthony. Michael, go to the site plan. I'll show you where the connection is. It's where the parking lot is. So if you were to leave the building,
first of all, this site plan is upside down, right? North is to the bottom.
Yes.
Okay.
But the text reads better this way. Otherwise, the text would be upside. This is how the plans would develop.
Right.
But you essentially.
Well, I don't know who does plans with the south, with the north to the bottom. But go ahead.
I didn't realize that either. I thought it was the opposite.
Right.
Okay.
Right. So you would walk past the rotary or the circle area through the parking lot with the crosswalks, and the community center is adjacent to where the parking lot. Just beyond the trees there is the parking lot for the community center. So we will be improving the connection between this facility and the community center.
But you also can go out the sidewalk on Manhattan, right?
Correct. We will be doing improvements connecting this development to existing sidewalks. We'll be improving the sidewalks because they are in poor condition. We're going to be addressing the pedestrian crosswalks and the drop curbs, and we'll be improving the connection from Manhattan Avenue to the community center. There is essentially a driveway. We'll be creating there's an asphalt pathway there. We're going to be putting new curbing and new sidewalk that will connect you from Manhattan Avenue into the community center facility as part of this project.
This is Bernie Toms. Is there any effect to street lighting on Manhattan Avenue in front of the facility?
The town of Greenberg never raised an issue with street lighting. We can go back to them and ask them.
No. I did discuss this already. There is adequate lighting along Manhattan Avenue. The town did not feel that there was an additional need to do any lighting on Manhattan. There will be lighting on the development parcel, so there's sufficient lighting to connect to when they walk through their property to the adjacent property, and then there's lighting on in the existing parking lot at the community center.
Any other questions?
Yeah, this is Dwight. After the building is constructed, is it owned by the housing authority, or is it now become privately owned?
Well, it'll become a tax credit entity that will own the property. The managing member will be an entity of Georgia Green, and the housing authority will be part of that entity, part of the tax credit structure or ownership. So the housing authority will remain involved in the development.
Who does decides who gets apartments in this? Does the housing authority have a say from their waiting list as to who gets apartments, other than the people who were displaced from the current 30 units? The other units, do they come from the housing authority list?
They have to comply with fair housing.
I understand that.
Yeah.
Will the housing authority waiting list be used to fill this building? I think that question needs to be answered.
Okay. I think it has to be opened up, but we can check on that.
This project didn't use the rental assistance demonstration program that HUD set up called the RAD. This is separate from that. It's not using that program.
Correct. That's utilized more in rehab of existing public housing. This was deemed obsolete, so they have permission to demolish it under Section 18. So that's the route they had gone with. Mm-hmm. So the tenants would be offered tenant protection vouchers that they can take and go anywhere with, or they can also return once the development is completed.
Wait, are all 30 units currently fully occupied?
I believe they are. I can double check on that.
They're going to close all the buildings at one time, or are they able to stage the construction and keep some buildings occupied until they need to be removed? But it's probably not worth it, but just wondering if that's something they're thinking of.
I believe it's all being done at one time. Anthony, is that your understanding?
They will be demolishing all the buildings and then performing site work. The elevations need to be adjusted as one complete project. So, and the utilities and infrastructure has to be built. So all the buildings will be demolished at one time.
So I think of all the issues that have been raised that I've listened to, I think something about a shuttle bus service or some kind of service for seniors, that probably stuff exists in Greenburgh. If you could look that up and see when the site is fully occupied, if Greenburgh will commit to providing, transportation for the seniors on a regular basis. I'm sure they probably already are, but it's just good to check to see that they are.
We can check on that. Greenburgh does offer senior services, but we can double check.
Actually, the CDBG program funded a new multi-passenger van for seniors and youth. They're under contract. It is ordered, and they'll be getting a new van. So the town of Greenburgh already provides this type of service, but we can raise it another time. But they do this already.
And I assume we're going to be having green building techniques here too, and heating and cooling, solar, geothermal.
This is going to be designed as with green building included in the actual design. They're required to do that as part of the HFA financing as well.
It looks like a very good project that, we're getting a good increased number of apartments, and these connecting to the community facility sounds important. And if there's shuttle bus service to it, and it sounds like it would be a very good project.
There's a really good bus stop right down the street. So,
did I hear you make a motion, Dwight?
Yes, I move in favor of supporting this application.
Okay,
Second, it's Rini.
Okay, want to call the roll?
James Arndt,
Yes.
Robert Barron,
yes.
Dwight Douglas,
yes.
Daniel Finger,
Yes.
Jimena Franchella. I don't know if you've seen her yet, but Gail for Ugreechin.
Yes.
Holly Hasbrook,
Yes.
Richard Hyman,
Yes.
Nat Federici for Vincent Kopicki,
Yes.
Kathy O'Connor,
Yes.
Bernie Tomes.
I remove myself from the.
Okay, and Rini Toback.
Yes.
Thank you.
Okay, and Leonard, if you get us answers to the questions we asked about the bus service and about the waiting list
and the current occupancy.
Yes. Please.
Yes, I will.
Okay.
Thank you.
Matters for board information. The first is Playland update.
Good morning. It's Peter Tartaglia from Parks. Waiting for the map to come up. Okay. Good morning, everyone. Welcome to September. Everybody's doing well, and the summer's going well. This is an update as to where we are with our 5-year capital project plan at Playland. This particular major set of projects began in 2019. So we are in the second year where there's actually construction on the ground and a lot more construction coming our way. I might jump around a little bit on the map because I think chronologically it more sense. As we know, Playland's a National Historic Landmark, and we have been very careful to work with our wonderful designers, with Lyro and Savin, DPW, planning, and every department involved in what we're doing here. We have approvals for much of what's here from SHPO. And a lot of this is either historic restoration or historic reconstruction, depending on the degradation of the buildings that we're talking about. There's some good news. If we could start with the two circles, which are really the purple color, that is the Carousel and Derby Racer rehabilitation. Those two buildings and one of the rides are under restoration. Obviously, we started the year with high hopes, and then we were hit with the pandemic, and the Carousel construction stopped for a short while, and the restoration of the horses had to be shut down for quite a while. Everything is back up and running. The historic Carousel building and the ride are slated to reopen in 2021, in May of next year. And because of the pandemic, we were able, with the amusement park being closed, and it's the same contract and the same capital project, we're able to have the construction project begin a little earlier because it wasn't open to the public. So that ride now, the Derby Racer, including the historic building and the horses as well, which are going to go out for restoration, are slated to reopen in 2021. So in May of 2021, barring any other major issue in the world, we should be opening those two rides. Other things that are happening, we have funding for just the pink color, which is the fire suppression. So I know it looks like there's a lot of work on the Dragon Coaster. It's actually upgraded fire suppression on the Dragon Coaster. Some of the buildings nearby that, the old mill and the stage area. We also have received funding and now have a vendor, a construction company, to rebuild the Playland switchgear, which is if you look at the parking lot, is the green building. The Playland switchgear is long outliving its life. We're keeping it together with contracts during this period, but we will have a whole new switchgear for the electricity and the flow of electricity throughout the entire park. That will be under construction shortly, as well as the fire suppression. We have also received funding through the county executive and then to the Board of Legislators, have now received funding to reconstruct the historic towers within the park. You might remember we lost one of the towers about 10 or so, if not more at this point, years ago because of the shape that the tower was in. These towers are really at their last breath. We have received the funding for that to go forward with the construction bid. And that color is all considered under what's called the Playland infrastructure, or the maroonish color. There's a lot that's going on in the maroonish color. What you see that look like brackets in the beginning of the park by the fountain, so the middle of the park and then to the back of the park, those are the tower areas. What is also going to be happening within that infrastructure project is reconstruction of food stands, as well as restoration of two of the bathrooms, the main bathroom and then the cross-access bathroom, which will be moved to the other side because of size needed to accommodate today's stall count, having family bathrooms and so forth, so we can make this as pleasurable for anybody who comes to the park. Any of our new bathrooms, we're always including family bathrooms as part of the project. Also will be under construction probably the end of this year into next year, and you can't see it on the map if you can go down a little bit, is the pool area, which really consists of two projects. It is the bluish area. The two projects are the historic bathhouse, or what we call the central bathhouse, which is what controls the pool and beach operation, as well as the, it's in between the two historic towers, which were restored years ago, but the buildings below them and inside them were not restored. So those two will be under contract as well very soon. When you see green, that's Playland site improvements. That's Fountain Plaza, mostly milling, paving. When you see it by the pool, it's really the parking lot. the area that we're not expanding the parking lot. It may look like we are there, we're not. We're just reconfiguring it a bit and saving as many trees as we can and doing extra plantings where we need to take out some trees. And coming up after all of this particular work will be a couple of other projects, including the colonnades, which are the orangish color, which also are part of the historic value of the park. It's part of the reason why we received the National Historic Landmark designation back in the 80s. That will be coming up to you soon, as well as the Fountain Plaza work and the repaving work. Also, just to note, what's not on here, but for this board would like to mention, because it is very important, it was very important to us, is the Playland Pathway project, which is really not part of this reconstruction project of the park, but the Playland Pathway project with our planning department in New York State is well underway. It is a repaving, regrading, widening, and adding to the Playland Pathway, which goes from the park all the way up to now Old Boston Post Road and then into the streets of Rye. That will allow more pedestrian and bike riders to come into the park. It's not even done yet, and the neighborhood is thrilled with what's been going on there. So that will be something that will attract more people, especially local people, to the park, or people who are coming from other connecting trailways or walkways. Also, you know, Playland, we're very mass transit centric. We have a Metro North package that we'll continue to build over the years for people who come by Metro North, as well as bus lines. And when we do down the road reconfigure the park, and we're going to be able to do some things now, we will be making areas for Uber drop-offs and taxi drop-offs and other drop-offs. So this is part of the entire plan. Moving forward, we're very excited, and we thank everyone for the support that we received.
Peter, one more comment about the Playland Pathway project. We're actually, the goal of that project was to connect the Rye train station to the park. So not only did we improve and widen the pathway along Playland Parkway and into the streets of the city of Rye, we make a safe pedestrian connection all the way to the train station in the city of Rye.
Did you say, Anthony, did you say pedestrian or pedestrian and bicycle connection?
No, it's mostly sidewalks in the existing street network, where along our Playland Pathway, we did a 8-foot wide shared use pathway. But in the city urban streets, we replaced existing sidewalks and actually constructed a missing link. I believe it's on North Street. So that's the extent of the connection.
Correct.
Thank you.
Any other comments? How much of are all these projects in the current county capital project budget?
Some of them have required capital budget amendments. We have, been working, specifically on Playland as a whole with the budget office, the county executive's office, the approvals from the Board of Legislators. So there have been some CBA's capital budget amendments for this year. This is the big year. When we get out of this year, the project numbers in the future outer years are much lower.
Peter, can we get a copy of the of a map or of the path that runs from the Rye train station to Playland, please? Like not now, but after the meeting, please.
Sure, Anthony, I'll leave that to you in planning.
Yes, we will get you a copy of that current project's alignment through the city and to the park.
Thank you.
We'll share that with all board members.
Thank you.
Any other questions or comments? If not, let's go to census update.
All right, so good morning, everybody. This is Norma. Ted is not available to do the census update, so I'm just going to give you a quick, better summary of really what I started with earlier today. So the census has now been open for 5.5 months since March 12th. As of today, as I said earlier, we are at 66.1%. So we're doing well. The last couple of weeks, we've seen tremendous jumps. In fact, The daily report from Friday's data that went yesterday, that I got last night, that include now through Sunday's data, the village of Croton-on-Hudson jumped 0.6% in just one weekend. So we're really seeing some tremendous strides. We now have 22 municipalities have met or exceeded their 2010 response rates. In fact, in 2010, we had no municipalities that had a response rate exceeding 80%. As of today, or as of last night, we have 4 municipalities that are now 80% or greater, including Briarcliff Manor, who just hit 80%, with Sunday's data. But then also Pelham Manor, Newcastle, and Scarsdale. Scarsdale continues to be the highest. Right now, they're at 81.5% response rate. On the lower end, though, we have quite the little battle going out between Mount Vernon and Portchester. All along, Mount Vernon has been, has had the lowest response rate, but right now they are only 0.1% behind the village of Portchester. So our lowest percentages are Mount Vernon at 53.2%, Portchester at 53.3%, and then we've got 2 other municipalities, Yonkers and Elmsford, who are still below 60%. Both of them are in the 58.2 and 58.7%. So we only have 4 municipalities that are still below 60%. When we completed 2010, actually, we only had 2 municipalities, Mount Vernon and Elmsford, had the 2 worst response rates in 2010. So all in all, we're like I said, we're on par with 2010 and in fact doing better at this point. So we're not done yet. Our banners, we ordered, as I said earlier, 52 banners, including 12 street banners that we're going to be giving out to the different municipalities who are going to get out the door today. So those are going to start getting up in different municipalities. And one of our nonprofits actually purchased these banners through the New York State grant. New York State finally released 50% of the $585,000 that or $535,000 that they had told us they were going to give us late last year. We're actually only going to get $267,000, and 75% of that money has to go out to our nonprofits. So that's $200,000 that we're giving out to our nonprofits, including the New York Immigration Coalition that's going to do some advertising in different languages, Neighbors Link, and Mount Vernon United Tenants. So it's the Peekskill NAACP. So we're working with a bunch of local nonprofits. We're arming them with some of the T-Mobile 200 tablets that T-Mobile gave us back in March, so that they're going to have real feet on the ground going to the food distributions and shopping centers and any events that are happening in the different municipalities to be able to assist people with completing their census right then and there. The census enumerators have been on the streets and have been out walking in the neighborhoods since August 6th. We do believe that this is part of the reason that people are starting to finally respond more than they were before. The census has said that they will send enumerators out to a single residence up to 6 times to try to collect somebody's information. We actually have a couple of our staff here have signed up to be census enumerators, in the evenings and on weekends. And so I get little reports every once in a while about what they're encountering as they're doing this. But all in all, they seem to think it's a very positive experience that they're doing. So the Census Bureau has now incentivized their workers to be able to encourage them to get better response rates. There's actually bonuses if they, cash bonuses if they get, higher response rates. So it's in the census takers' best interest to try to get people to respond. They are practicing social distancing, so they go to the doors with their IDs and their bags and their everything that shows they're a census worker, but they're also wearing masks, and then they just step away from the door and just try to assist the person with their own tablet, in a socially distanced manner. So as I said earlier, the Census Bureau says that they have collected 17.5% of the household's data through their enumerators, which means that the information that's collected by the census enumerators does not count toward our self-response rates. Self-response is what it is. People are responding on their own. If the Census Bureau is taking it, that if going and getting the information, that's going to be the difference between our self-response rate and ultimately getting 100% of our housing units counted. So we're not done. We've got 30 days left to be able to finish this up. And, you know, we're certainly not giving up yet. We're continuing with lots more advertising still running on News 12 and on some of the Spanish speaking stations. We've got the billboards that are now up again in Yonkers, Portchester, New Rochelle, and Mount Vernon. And like I said, the banners are going up, the door hangers, the lawn signs, all of this stuff that we've just got out and about should ultimately help us get there. By the way, our worst census tract continues to be Grasslands. So at this point, we think just the apartments that were occupied by the New York Medical College students have been vacated, and we just don't think they're ever going to be able to collect the information of who was actually living there unless I don't know how the medical college is doing with them. We did work with the medical center to get them census information that they distributed out to their staff housing units there. They have about 70 staff housing units on the campus there. But yeah, so the worst census tracts themselves. By the way, as of yesterday, we now have 3 census tracts with response rates that have exceeded 85%. So Hastings has had one for probably about 2 weeks now. They've had a census tract that exceeded 85%. But there are now 2 census tracts in the city of White Plains that also both exceed 85%. So again, very localized areas are doing really, really well. You know, it's just some of the more difficult areas where there's lower internet access, a lot of multifamily buildings in some of these areas, those are the areas we're more worried about. That's it, Richard.
Okay, thank you. Have you had any problems hiring people to go out and do the door knocking?
Well, not us. We're not hiring. But our nonprofits are actually hiring college students, believe it or not. That's part of the grants that we're using them. And they're not necessarily going door to door, but they're going out to the grocery stores and they're going to the different events to have people at as many events as possible. So they are finding that they're finding because they're hiring the college students that they're doing okay. I haven't gotten a report lately from the Census Bureau about ultimately how they did with hiring all the people that they needed. Their original plan included them hiring college students, but then because they were starting so late out in the field, they kind of realized they had to hire other people because the college students in some cases were going back to school.
Okay, thank you, Norma. Next, Westchester 2033 update.
Hi, this is Bill. We had sent to the planning board a while ago a version of this list of committees that we were hoping that we can get some planning board members to volunteer for. A couple of you got back. Thank you very much. What we've tried to do is fill this in. We took the liberty of kind of assigning some more committees to some of the members so that we've got some members on each of these different chapters and topics. And so we're kind of nicely spread out. So we will send this back out. Our next step for 2033 is to start having some WEBEX meetings on these different topics with staff and planning board members. And as you see on the bottom there, we've got some other board chairs, Transportation Board, the Housing Opportunity Commission, and the Human Rights Commission on some topics. And we'll start convening those. And really, we've begun to pull together some information, but we're hoping to use the, your wealth of experience and knowledge as planning board members in your communities and your fields to kind of pull together, solidify our outline, solidify some of the data that we've been already pulling together, and using some of your help on getting us a little bit more focused on these topics and to hash some of this out. So we'll be convening those meetings starting in September and October. Again, we've got each of you on 3 or 4 different committees. We will try to spread them out so we're not hammering you with lots of meetings. But we appreciate all your help. We'll have agendas and outlines and kind of pre-made PowerPoint presentations to go over these different topics and what we've been pulling together from sources inside the county and outside the county. Again, I'll keep it brief, but you'll be seeing a little bit more of that in the coming days as we set up. So we're going to send this back out. please get back to us as soon as possible if you like to switch committee assignments, or if you have any questions about the topics or the time commitment, things like that. And again, we'll definitely and gladly take any other background and information that you want to feed to us. Thank you.
Any comments from the members? Okay, respond once you get it. Respond to see if your committee assignment is appropriate for what you would like to do. Is there any other business? If not, I'll hear a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Thank you, Rob. Second?
I second it.
Okay, I heard everyone say aye, so thank you.
Aye.
Thank you, everybody. Stay safe.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
Bye.